Good evening and greetings from wherever you are watching us from, in Kenya and beyond. Welcome to the Inside Show, your favorite weekend magazine that focuses on current affairs and politics that steers big conversations. My name is Stephen George.
And of course, welcome to this conversation again. My name is Eugene Kwach. It's indeed a big conversation here tonight as we talk about the new dawn of governance. The Kenya we want. It's a conversation that we're going to have tonight. 2144 is our SMS line. And of course, as we always do it, we do not do it alone. We have a political commentator with us in the room. His name is Charles Okwemba. Charles Okwemba is joining us to help us to look deeply and critically into the issues that we have tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for actually joining the show. And I just wish us to begin immediately this conversation, George. The conversation is about the new dawn of governance.
Yes.
The Kenya we want. And actually, this conversation has been because of a lot of things that actually we have experienced as a nation, as a country. But before we go and delve deeply into them, let me first just ask you this. What is the vision of actually the Kenya that we aspire to create from where you sit?
From where I sit, the vision of the Kenya we want a Kenya that's inclusive of every single tribe. We want a Kenya that's led by leaders who have a vision of seeing that Kenya is at the top of its game. Where we see Kenya is looking at Kenya being this republic that is allows freedom of speech, allows people to have that freedom of being able to speak out, and a country that's led by leaders who are really willing to push Kenya a way forward and putting them at a place where people can look at Kenya and say that this is the Kenya we've been looking forward to, with leaders who are accountable, with citizens who are keeping their leaders accountable. And that is the vision and the Kenya that we want.
But even still on the same question,
yes,
maybe we have said that is where we want to be, that is where we aspire to be. Mm-hmm. But how far are we from the land of Canaan?
We are not so far, but we are on a journey. I can say Kenya is on a journey. We just had the 2010 constitution just a few years back. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're having devolution in place, mm-hmm. which is taking shape. But as we go on, mm-hmm. with every system, mm-hmm. there's always challenges.
Okay.
Yes, but as we go forward, mm-hmm. Kenya, I think we're not so far from reaching our vision and where we want to be. It's just that keeping our leaders accountable and just making sure that things fall right into place. Mm-hmm. I believe we will reach our destination.
Okay, before I take it back to George,
yes.
Maybe what is the gap between where we are and where we actually aspire to be as a country from where you sit?
From where I sit?
The gap.
The gap.
Yeah.
We have a gap of almost like, I can say, estimate. Mm-hmm. The estimate is around 10 years before we can reach where we want to be.
Is it just years, or is it maybe in some of the things we need to work on? Maybe you can say corruption is a big threat to this particular issue. Mm-hmm. It has actually been an issue that has bedeviled our politics and the governance structure mm-hmm. for the longest time. Mm-hmm. Maybe some of these things, how long do you think, or rather, when do you think we will do away with them?
Okay, we can't do away with corruption, okay. that I'll say, but we can deal with it.
Okay.
We can work on having leaders who are kept accountable and looking at it that way, okay. in that sense.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
The president had promised that in his cabinet, we are going to have an eclectic cabinet. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've seen the Gen Z were advocating for the broad-based government and mm-hmm. the governance. Yes. We've seen new faces. We've seen people who have shaped policies like Oparanya into mm-hmm. the conversation. Do you think this kind of leadership will steer the country into a different direction?
For me, I believe by starting, the president, by including the people like Oparanya in the government, including parts of some people from the opposition side, that is ODM, it was a good step. At least we can see some a bit of mind shapers in this cabinet, and from from the composition of it, all of it like that, I feel like the president wanted to include like everyone so that he can be helped, because he needed help. He cried for help and he said like, I need help here. The people I'd put before previously didn't do the job right as I wanted to. So he went and picked people from this other side and said, let me try people from this side and see how they can help me. But he also, through the people who were advising him, I believe that his advisors were really great, because they advised him and told him like, pick people who can be able to help you.
Of course, we saw the opposition. We
Yes.
saw Mbadi included into the basket. We saw like Joe, Ali Hassan Joe, the former governor of Mombasa. Do you think being in opposition square, do you think is going to work with these people well? Because these are the same watchdog people. What do you think it will happen?
For me, I see it in two ways. President Ruto was looking to have his cards played correctly. He wanted to have this side, let me bring in this opposition side with the skill set. Because looking at Joho, you can look, he was a governor, former governor for a county. He governed a county. So for 10 years. So that means he can be able to shape and can be able to give advice and can be able to lead in a few things inside the government. And he's well versed with what happened. He was in the previous governments, and he can be able to know like, this is how we can run this institution, this is how we can run this thing. So, and if you look at Mbadi, he's now been nominated for the treasury position.
Okay.
He was in the budget committee, and he's been the chair. I believe he's been the chair there, if I'm not wrong. And yes, since he's been the chair there in the budget, he knows how to which money goes where and everything. So being placed in treasury means that
Indeed.
he has the knowledge of how to actually run that.
Of course.
Yes.
But I think a very critical question, because we're at a point in time where we are having a conversation of where we want to head as a country. When talk about the governance structure, or rather the new dawn of governance that we wish to have, even as we look at and talk about that, then we ask ourselves that maybe, for example, in economic reforms and equity, you talked about inclusion as you were talking earlier.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about economic reforms and equity. Maybe as Mbadi is going there, what exactly is he actually supposed to be doing? Or rather, what specific economic reforms are essential to achieve the Kenya we want, that we expect Mbadi or whoever takes the position to now pursue?
Yes, of course. Once he gets in there, we'll look at what needs to, what budget goes where. Because, I mean, Treasury is the one that looks at the budget and sets and says, like, this set of budget goes to here. If it's for education, it goes to education. If it's for land, it goes to land. It's for infrastructure, it goes to infrastructure. And I believe that with the knowledge, because he's been in Parliament and they've been passing this budgets and passing the budgets. I believe by the time he sits there, he'll have the knowledge and the expertise that he's gathered.
And of course, he will have tandem conversations in the House.
Yes, they will have those tandem conversations, and they'll be able to deduce and know, like, this is where we place this sorts of budget, here and here and here. And the Kenya we want a Kenya where everyone feels that, like, they're at home. And everyone feels like my areas have been focused on. And when you put budgets in places where it fits and where it's needed, I believe we'll have the Kenya we want, and we will be where we actually want to be, and we will actually look forward to. From there, we want to move to this state. Yes.
One more concern.
Yes.
You see, we are talking about economic reforms and equity, and such conversations around economic reforms.
Yes.
But there is something that has actually also bedeviled our politics, whereby you see a politician or even the president himself goes to a place and say that tumetenga bilioni ya hii na nyinyi watu tumewafanyia hii na tutawaletea milioni this amount of money. The amount of money this politician is saying that he has brought or is doing this and that has not actually been approved in Parliament. Because we understand that it is the duty of the Parliament to actually then allocate resources.
Yes.
So how do we go about this, and how do we even balance now what we are clamoring for, the economic reforms and against, as a juxtaposition now, what the politicians have been doing and saying, which I believe from where I sit,
Yes.
is indeed curtailing what we are now clamoring for.
I believe when you talk about and say like they go to the ground and they go to the people and tell the people that this is the money to Metenga this one and to Metenga this. I believe until it is passed
Yes.
in the parliament,
Okay.
in parliament itself, what we can take it is word. It's just word of mouth. They're telling you these are the promises. I'm promising to give you this, but it needs to go through procedures. It needs to go to parliament where they are supposed to sit down and debate
Yes.
and come up with probably not a solution. They need to sit down, vote for it.
Yes.
Then it's passed. Once it's passed, that's when you can say like this money has gone through the proper channels for it to come out and be given to this certain places. Like if it's in Ministry of Education, it's placed in the Ministry of Education. If it's in the Ministry of Health, it's in the Ministry of Health. I believe with that, until it is passed, we can't take it as it is. They can come and tell us out there and tell us that this money
Right.
is to Metenga. Yes.
Gen Zs were expecting a representative of them. Of course, we've seen only one possible nominee being vetted today. Are you disappointed? Are you disgruntled by the president? At least he should have at least nominated 2-3 Gen Zs into these cabinet positions to, continue with this manifesto. Do you think he has failed in that sector?
For me, I believe he has. I'm disappointed to start. I'm disappointed that only one Gen Z has been floated into the has been nominated there and has been. Is it vetted today?
Yes.
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 I'm disappointed by that. I believe there are very skilled young people who are gearing and garnering for this positions, and I believe he would have picked up at least one or two, at least three for this position to be nominated. For I believe that when you bring young, fresh minds who have been who are groomed and are grooming themselves for these positions and they're yearning to be there, I believe by including them, it will have leveled a bit the cabinet. But right now we are seeing people who are there before in this previous government being brought back. And I mean, if we continue recycling people and bringing back and reshuffling and just bringing them back, I don't think it's helping a bit. It's helping a lot. But for me, I believe like.
So reshuffling that cabinet at first was just an exercise in futility.
It was an exercise in futility.
Okay.
Because we were expecting to see new, fresh faces, people who will come and tell us, bring new things to the table and be able to help the Gen Z push their agenda and be able to sort these things out.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Still talking about youth involvement in governance, as he has asked,
Yes.
about our expectations as the youth, or generally the expectation of the Kenyan youth,
Yes.
particularly those that are calling themselves the Gen Zs, who have been clamoring for change through various ways, mandamanos, which I believe that we will also get a time to speak about.
Yes.
But even as we talk about shaping the Kenya that we want, but through the new dawn of governance, well, maybe perhaps the question will be that the role that you particularly see the youth playing in governance and even political leadership, and generally how can they ensure that the voices of now the young people are effectively heard, and not just heard, but actually even translated into actionable policies? How can we, because yes, we have been heard, people, the president has said that I've heard you. Yes. But now how now can we make them to be translated into actionable policies? Like, for example, we need to maybe have this number of youths in the cabinet, or this number. You get what I'm trying to say? Yes, so how now can we make it to be translated? Because we don't just want to be heard. That is what they say, that we've just heard you, but we can now not see it, even in the policies or even in actions.
There are various ways young people can come out and play and shape make the government actually not just hear them, but translate it into actionable ways.
Yes.
One of it is through their groups. They can come into groups, and they can come together, sit down,
Yes.
organize themselves, and push for certain policies.
Yes.
I mean, drafting policies that actually affect them and present them.
Yes.
Because I believe Parliament allows for spaces where you can go and place your petitions. And they can be taken to committees, because it goes to the committee stage. From the committee stage, it goes now to the Parliament debates it, and then now they vote for it, and it's passed, and it, it's becomes a bill, or yes. And I believe when young people are taken through such, when they're sensitized on such ways of how they can be translated to actionable ways, it's through that. When you put yourself in groups and you put policies together
Okay.
and draft them, that's how one way you can tap in and make it actionable.
Okay.
Right. We saw majority of Kenyans endorsed Wycliffe Oparanya, the former governor of Kakamega, is it?
Yes.
And we've seen EACCs after him. Do you think they will absolve him at the end of it? And since majority of Kenyans, of course, they wanted him and Matiang'i to be involved in the Ruto's administration, do you think he'll be absolved?
I think, in my own opinion, I think he'll be absolved. Looking at it this way, because, I mean, right now we're not having any cases being leveled against him. Until EACC comes out and says, like, we have this evidence. There hasn't been any evidence that's been really brought forward, really, to EACC and say, like, you need to charge him right now. So I feel he'll be absolved, and he'll be able to be vetted just like that. Without evidence, you can't charge someone. You can't go take someone to court. And EACC right now, I do believe they do not have the evidence to come forward and say, like, this is the evidence we have of what has happened. So he will be absolved. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We are actually, we're very interesting having this conversation with you, Mr. Okwemba. Of course, a very intriguing conversation, even as we talk about the new dawn of governance and the new Kenya the Kenya that actually we want. But as we continue with this conversation, we are taking a quick short break. Momentarily, we'll be back to the wonderful voice of SMS Line. Continue conversing with us.
Riddle for today is, if you don't keep me, I'll break. What am I?
I'm Annabelle Rino. I'm a model, a professional one indeed. I'm also a visual artist. I'm also a professional swimmer. But the moment I had that I was top 30, it revived. It revived everything in me, and I knew that this is a chance, not just for by my own decision, but it's a chance to me given by God. Every extra hour is for adding knowledge, adding wisdom to myself. And whenever I get some extra time, I can be able to add a skill through that knowledge and have a new talent to myself. So that's an added advantage. I never imagined I would do modeling at all. I thought that modeling was for those people who are born with the self-confidence as from the first day of birth. Someone is so energetic, someone is so confident.
And what about the worst experience as an artist? Because you also paint, you've also painted. Is there a worst experience, a low experience you can feel, ay? Now we're going to enter into something called random questions. My favorite. Okay, so I'm asking you a question, alafu unajibu tu haraka. Okay. Because those people, let's commend them on their quality. Sana their music videos quality na top notch.
Kwa artist anataka kuwa msanii. Usiende kwa studio kwanza kurecord ngoma bila kuwa educated about music. Juu sasa utaingia hapo, urecord ngoma yako vizuri alafu
hiyo utakuwa umegain kila kitu, but pia label uyachangi hivyo. We helped you, so you are supposed to
do something.
Kiingia unapewa contract. Unajua contract inakonga between two parties. Mnaagria under one thing, kila mtu analeta interest zake, then mnaangalia vile mtapata.
We have talent in the ghettos, but manze usanii ni ngumu, designer wise endelea.
True. Manze mimi niliona movie ya Kenya je. Na movie ilikuwa ina trend. Walitumia Land Rover hizi za kitambo, hizi chuma, hizi.
Mtu akisenza audio kitu ni ya uongo.
Umeelewa kabisa.
Kwa form 1 kuna
Unaweza-
mseme hando akasema yeye ni artist. Akaambia kuja hapa bro.
Eh.
Unichore pilipili na ukali yake.
For the Bilibili part sour, but not how the Musali part.
Everywhere, GBS.
And welcome back to the Inside Show. Keep your comments coming through our SMS line and social media handles now. Charles,
Yes.
do you think the Azimio coalition is drifting away? Because we've seen one of the principals trying to get out from the way, and she said that her stay from in Azimio is not tenable. Do you think it is over?
I do not believe it's over for Azimio, but looking at from the looks of it, it seems there's a bit of disquiet on their end, on Azimio, since ODM, some of the members from ODM have been picked into the cabinet. So it's causing a bit of rift, but I believe they'll just come to terms, they'll just come back, they'll bridge themselves back as a coalition. I believe there's just some disquiet because some of the members have been picked and the others are feeling like why are we not being included in this? And they're still rallying with the Gen Zs and they're saying let's move with the Gen Zs and let's push this government and make it accountable and make it just accountable for them to be pushed and be made like we want this. I believe they also wanted a piece of the cake, which they didn't get.
So you think the president has won in his quest to have an inclusive kind of government?
In some way, the president has won in having an inclusive government. Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Well, still on the same question, because they've been disquiet, yes.
Yes.
But do you think that because there have been, we have seen occasions where people are saying that former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has actually made this a bit more difficult. It's like Prime Minister Raila Odinga's working with Ruto has somehow maybe affected the Gen Z demonstration, as people have said. Do you think that when Raila Odinga was quiet, compared to now that he has spoken and he has agreed to work with the government, is there a difference? And do you think that his stance to work with the government and of course the president has affected the political the politics of the day and even now affected the Gen Z demonstrations?
I believe it has affected the Gen Z demonstrations.
Yes.
Because when from the looks of it, it seems that some of the members of the opposition were rallying with the Gen Zs, and they were steaming and they were being behind, pushing with the Gen Zs. But then when the government when the president came in and told Raila, let's work together. And Raila looked at it in different ways. There's no harm working with the president to bring the country together and make it a good place for people to live in. So I believe Raila, him coming in, obviously affected the demonstrations. Because part of the demonstrators felt like, okay, part of our thing, what we wanted was someone would come and at least help us a bit and quiet down and make it simpler for us to actually get in. But I believe now, for the Gen Z demonstrations, it's divided now. Because the Gen Z among them is divided. Because some of them feel like Raila working with the government will help a bit to solve some of the issues. Yes.
I think that will lead to some questions that maybe I will get to ask earlier. But Judge, I think perhaps just to agree with him, that if you look at the demonstrators, quite a great number were coming from the people who have actually been in opposition, who have supported Baba during demonstration. And if you can maybe look back a bit, you will realize that most of the people from actually Nairobi are the people who have actually been demonstrating. And Baba Raila Odinga himself has had quite a huge following in the city of Nairobi. So I think to a large extent, maybe Raila working with the government or saying that he will want to work with, or he works with the government, even however little it may appear, even through now the top leadership of ODM, somehow has affected, has affected indeed the March Gen Z demonstration. But before I come to you, maybe if I just ask a question again on public participation in governance, because I believe it's a very important thing, even as we talk about the new generation, the governance. So we have seen for a very long time, maybe the public have actually thought and have actually said that they have not been involved in some of these decisions that have been made. Yes. And even as we are talking still on the issue of new CSS that we have actually seen, a question that actually, the one thing that comes out clearly is that on public participation, and maybe I can ask that, how can we then enhance public participation in the governance process? And in the governance process, to the extent that people want policies that favor them, that do not just come from nowhere, that the government sees this is right, maybe on, it could be policies on maybe certain things, or maybe on taxes or whatever. Some people sit somewhere and they say this is what is good for the people. They want to be fully involved. So that when you talk about taxes, it's indeed them that have said, there's a conversation that we've had. Maybe the president has said that we have to put this tax here for this and this reason. You get it? We are increasing it from 8 to 16 because of this and this reason. We need to maybe pay some of our debts and this and that. So it's a conversation that now the Kenyans and the governance authorities are now having. But from where we sit, it seems like there has not been this conversation. And hence the public participation, of course, lack of it. So how can we enhance public participation in the governance process, even as we are experiencing a new cabinet and maybe going forward?
All right, that's a good question. One of the ways, and we just saw recently what the president did, town halls. Having town halls, conversations. Going down, we have the devolved system of government where the governors are, and even the MPs. You can go to your constituents, sit down there with them, have those uncomfortable conversations about this, what they want. Ask them, what do you want as my constituents? Having the town halls and picking up what they really, really, really need and taking them now to the house. Even for the governors, sit down with your people down there. Have them tell you, these are the policies we want. This is what we want as people from this county. These are the problems we face in the county. It will help. Town halls, social media spaces where they can tap into the young people, involve the young people in these conversations. Because young people will tell you, this is what we are facing as young people. The elderly people will tell you, this is what we face as the elderly people. The middle class will tell you, this is what we face as the middle class people. And these are the policies we want. So when you come together from the young people from different ages and different groups, you will come to know, like, this is the major thing that is affecting these people, and including when you include them and they feel like, and they see that really this is what this person is. Now we've put our policies there, we've put our problems, and you are addressing them through town halls and all this. It will enhance. Yes, I believe that's not been happening.
The Court of Appeal just thwarted out the finance bill. It was termed as unconstitutional, and if you see what was encapsulated in the finance bill, of course, most of the corporate Kenyans were not ready to participate in that kind of thing. Do you think Gen Z has won in this capacity?
I feel the Gen Zs have won because they pushed for it. Because some of the things that are being included in the finance bill were affecting Kenyans. And Kenyans everyone. If you look at some of the policies or some of the taxes that are being included there were really affecting us. We're already in pain. I mean, you're already being injured, and then someone is adding salt to the injury. So I feel like the Gen Zs won in having this, have a look again at the finance bill, at the policies that are being passed. You know, it's giving people a new way of governing, and a new way of how to look at the policies being passed. Don't just pass a policy because a majority or certain people have said, like, okay, this thing works. You have to look at it, the nitty-gritties. How is this policy affecting people? How is it affecting us to the ground? How is it helping us as citizens, or how is it helping us as a people in the country? When you look at those policies, look at them and make it make sense for us. If it's affecting us, if it's affecting our economy, because I believe the Gen Zs are well-read and they're well knowledgeable. They're knowledgeable in whatever they're coming out, the policies. Because some of them are lawyers, they're studying law. Some of them are lawyers. Some of them are journalists, in different career fields. And they can be able to give their insights on it. So I believe with such minds and such a turn around and look at things differently, it will bring in new governance, new ways to govern the country, and leaders who are being kept accountable. And
For us to get the Kenya we want.
For us to get the Kenya we want.
Let me be the devil's advocate, because he still asked questions on some of the policies that actually were overturned by the judiciary.
Yes.
But let's have that difficult conversation again. That could it be that some of the policies that actually we are seeing the government maybe passing through parliament are not actually policies that are Kenyan made? Could be maybe because of some people somewhere. And during these demos actually, we had the conversation, maybe if you're keen, you heard people talking about the Bretton Woods institutions.
Yes.
Of course, when you talk about the World Bank, when you talk about the IMF,
yes.
We talk about such institutions that actually are funding the government of Kenya.
Yes.
Then it means that some of these policies are actually coming from them without necessarily checking whether it will be pro-people. But again, the big question then will be, how do we go about it? Because yes, in our budget,
yes.
we always have and have experienced budget deficits,
yes.
which means that we have to still go and look for this money somehow for us to maybe meet our needs. How do we go about it? If the people that are lending us, the Bretton Woods institution, for example, have some policies that which we have to actually follow, but
yes.
it is difficult still. What do you think?
For me, I think one way to go about it is leaders. It's for the leaders now. For us, we look at it in terms of leaders that we've put in place. Which kind of leaders have we put in place? Are they people who will look at the vested interest of these institutions, or will they look at the vested interest of Kenyans? I mean, when you're, of course, IMF will give you you'll go ask for money for certain infrastructure or certain policies to be passed. They will tell you, for us to give you this, we'll need you to put some of these policies inside that will favor us. But at the end of the day, you'll have to look at, is this benefiting my people? Is it helping? Is it going to be able to be sufficient for my people, for my country? So it is for the leaders that we have put in place, who we have to keep accountable, have to keep in check, and have to keep them at par and make them really look at those policies. Because right now we're having a turnaround and looking at it in a different way. We are looking at, instead of just saying that let's pass this policy because IMF has given us this money or World Bank has given us this money, look at how is this money that they've given us going to benefit Kenyans, and how is it going to help us? And the policies they're asking for us to push for, is it helping Kenyans?
Okay. On the same note, before George takes over,
yes.
The very critical question, this conversation begs a very critical question which we had actually alluded to earlier, and that is on corruption. Because we understand that even some of this money that we get from the Bretton Woods institutions like IMF,
yes.
when they come to the country, they do not actually meet the demands, or like they do not actually do what it was intended for them. But we have seen lack of transparency and accountability in some of the resources that we have been given as a country. From where you sit as a Gen Z, let me say so,
yes.
or maybe as you talk about new leadership, from where you sit maybe, this has been an issue, of course, that bedeviled us. Yes. And Aden Duale today was saying that it was even juxtapositioning between and comparing between Al-Shabaab and corruption, which is a major threat to the national security. And he says, comparing the two, corruption is. Now, from where you sit, corruption being a barrier to good governance,
yes.
what are these concrete measures, without many stories, to combat corruption at all levels of government?
First things first, the leaders that we're putting in place. The way we can combat corruption is keeping leaders accountable and electing leaders, or putting leaders who we have actually vetted and looked at their leadership qualities. What kind of leaders are we putting in place?
Yes.
What kind of leaders are we shaping? When you're looking at leaders who have cases
Yes.
piling up with them and having lots of cases with them, do you expect that leader to not be corrupt in that government? If you have a leader who has questionable character, do you expect that leader not to be corrupt? Of course the leader will be corrupt
Okay.
because he's been used to that system of corruption and seeing it and getting away with it. But when we have leaders who are of good leadership qualities, leaders who know what they're serving the people, because you're there to serve people, not to.
So how do we get this good leadership, good leaders with
good
leadership
leaders?
qualities?
Yes.
Do people even want to elect them in the first place? Do they even have the enough and the necessary clout to be elected?
Yes, they are good leaders, and yes, we can look for those good leaders, and we can get these leaders, and we can elect them. It is just for us Kenyans to just look for these leaders to come out, then not be afraid, because I believe some of the leaders are afraid.
Okay.
But come out, put yourself out there, and people will see. Put your views forward, put your vision forward, and
Right.
Kenyans will see it.
In retrospect, we've seen these demonstrations. Raila has been calling for demonstrations for
Yes.
a very long time.
Yes.
This time we saw Gen Z organizing themselves online, and they went to the street in a very physical way. Do you think being a part of this demonstration is part of the new governance that we are having? Should a leader do something, let's say, is very corrupt, a Gen Z will go to his office with a placard for calling out his name. Do you think this is the new way to go?
I believe this is the new way to go, because we are trying to move from a system that has been there before, where people keep quiet and they sit in their homes and close
And actually, we
themselves.
saw it work
Yes.
in Venezuela, of course,
Yes.
just recently.
Yes, and it's a new wave that's coming around the world, where people are like saying we are moving from this old system where we just keep quiet and we sit in our houses and we complain. Now it's time for us to come out and keep these leaders in check and tell them, like, listen, it is our right. It is my right. You are supposed to serve me as a citizen, not me to come and beg for what I want.
And remember, when
Yes.
they are clamoring for this change, they shouldn't be destroying people's property,
Yes.
cars,
Yes.
and destroying
Yes.
their businesses.
Yes. It's peaceful demonstrations. It's
Yes.
enshrined in the Constitution, where you go picket, you put your views forward, you place your petitions, and you follow it up. Yes.
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 60 people died from the demonstrations.
Yes.
Do you think the president has a responsibility now that we are having the same person in the same docket that he had put in the cabinet, Kindiki, the incoming CS? Yes. Do you think he will take responsibility in these deaths that have happened?
From where I sit, I don't see him taking responsibility. I think the president just put him back there, because people were saying that he showed the capacity to be able to fill that position well. But for me, I don't feel like he'll take that responsibility.
Yes, I'm asking
per se.
this because
Yes.
just the other day, there was the Garissa attack. What happened in Garissa? Is it 100 plus students lost their lives, and the government compensated the families of these people?
Yes.
Now, do you think in the same fashion, the president is going to give some money to their families?
I don't believe the president will do that. He's been reiterating and saying, like, he doesn't support the demonstrations. For him, if he doesn't support the demonstrations, I do not believe he will come out and say, like, this is, I am giving, I'm compensating. But I believe there's that part of the Kenyans who feel like the Gen Zs feel like the lives of the people need to be compensated. Yes.
We are seeing, of course, it's a new dawn of governance. Gen Z are trying to steer conversations in this country.
Yes.
The same leaders are propagating for change. We saw the deputy president's house being manned by the police. Members of his staff were being asked questions by the detectives. do you think the government is losing it by doing that? Someone at such a stature as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya being grilled to that extent in the public eye. Do you think it was fair for the presidency to do that?
I do not believe it is fair. I believe that I've just, I mean, if you're having any differences with your deputy, or in any case, your deputy having differences, there's a way you can sort your differences without involving the whole media scenario and involving detectives and all that. Yes.
Okay.
I believe it's just having a way to sort it out without involving the whole media scenario. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Let's have a difficult conversation. Still on what you were talking about.
Yes.
Because we have had a conversation again on Mandamano.
Yes.
On the protest. And George has asked you very critical questions on the Mandamano. Whether these people are going to be paid, whether there is a new way to go. But again, I have a new set of questions around the new dawn of governance.
Yes.
But permit me first of all to take you around the protest, a bit of history about the protest.
Yes.
And the political protest, as you know it, have shaped human history, evolving into a force for change during the age of enlightenment. In Kenya, mass actions have played crucial roles for the Mau Mau uprising during the independence. And then, of course, we had during 1990s multi-party protests. You know what happened, even during Sabasaba, that even saw us now having what was known as multi-party democracy, pluralism being introduced. We saw the post-election violence of 2007, 2008 that agreed for a conversation, a dialogue between President Kibaki during that time and then opposition leader Raila Odinga.
Yes.
And of course, during 2017 protests, when we saw a protest of the opposition protesting against the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, they say that actually
And it was more of a tribal thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The elections were stolen for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Yes. But these conversations around protest, that is not the end. We have experienced protest across the country in several ways.
Yes.
But while the protest can derive change and hold governments accountable,
yes,
they can also lead to violence, property destruction, and society polarization if unchecked. To ensure that political action remains constructive, it must be balanced with respect for the rule of law, human rights, and democratic principles.
Yes.
This balance is essential generally to preserve the very values that the protest aims to protect. But let's have this conversation around the Mandamanos and their roles in governance. The first question will be on the Mandaman and its role now on governance.
Yes.
So in this era of political agitation and widespread protest of Mandamanos, do you believe that demonstrations have served their purpose? Further, have they become redundant? Or do they still hold significant value in the fight for good governance? And be very critical, look at it very keenly, this question, because you look at what Mandamano has led us to, and now, and some of the things actually that even Mandamano has done, and even now people even dying.
Yes.
You get it?
Yes.
Yes. What do you think?
Yes. Looking critically at it, Mandamano has served its purpose, but if we continue going through Mandamano every single time, every single week, every single day, it will lose its purpose.
Okay.
Mandamano should happen in a way that it is well structured, well informed. People are well informed. They know like this is how it's supposed to be. All institutions have to be included in it, so that once it happens, if you're marching, if you're picketing, there should not be destruction of property, which is what the law says. No destruction of property, peaceful demonstration. Looking critically at it, what we saw happening is the Mandamano happened, yes, but then there was loss of lives, which was unfortunate. Because parts of the law enforcement decided to go aggressive with the demonstrators, which we saw. And unfortunately, it's a conversation I've been having with the people around me, and we were like, yes, Mandamano happens. Even in other countries, peaceful demonstrations happen.
Yes.
They do happen. But at the end of the day, we usually have like probably we don't see this being aired out. There's loss of lives.
So
and
if this have their purpose,
But they
have
serve
they
their
been
purpose.
redundant from where you sit?
From where I sit
Yes.
right now, I feel like they've been redundant.
They've been redundant.
Yes.
So where should now Mandamano cease? Even as we're looking for the Nane march,
Yes.
that they're looking for like they want over 2 million march to State House.
Yes.
We are looking forward, people, I don't know whether it's right for me to say we're looking forward to it, but it's something that actually is being planned. But the president has been very categorical that he's going to protect the people of Kenya.
Yes.
So when should Mandamano cease? When should it cease?
Mandamano should cease from a point where we've seen like from the moment we started losing lives.
Okay.
Young people losing lives, people going out, and destruction of property. Once there's destruction of property, people losing their lives, I feel Mandamano was already infiltrated by goons. People started taking opportunity of the Mandamanos and coming in and starting destroying properties, stealing. I believe that's when now it should have ceased, and then they would have looked at other ways to push the message.
Right.
Yes.
Let me put something a bit before you get in. But even as we talk about Mandamano,
Yes.
there is always something else that has always come to take the place of Mandamano in protest.
Yes. Yes.
And that is what we call dialogue.
Yes.
In some cases, it has been described as Nusumkati or whatever.
Yes.
But this conversation which has been steered, and majorly when we talk about dialogue, there's a very prominent political figure, the former premier Raila Odinga,
Yes.
who appears conspicuously in dialogues, because you've seen the nature through which he holds his Mandamano. The Mandamano happens, but there's a time through which he holds now a dialogue.
Yes.
The other time they had Mandamano, and then there's a dialogue that saw NADCO. This time we have seen the Gen Z having the Mandamano.
Yes.
But the president and Raila Odinga have come and said that it's now time for dialogue. And they need a dialogue. The dialogue that has actually seen some of the people of opposition party now working closely with the government.
Yes.
I don't know maybe what's your perception to that, but again, continuously has dialogue itself provided tangible solutions to the issues that are actually bedeviling us as a country, from how you've seen those conversations, the dialogue now?
Looking at the dialogue state, yes?
Yes.
We could see during the 2013, not 2013, the 2017 elections, when now Uhuru decided to dialogue with Raila and work together. When they worked together, we saw like it was easy. Policies used to pass. It was easier for policies to pass through in the government.
Yes.
And I believe when people come together, both sides shelve their egos and come and sit down at the table and say like, this is where we need to meet at this point. We compromise on our ends and we meet halfway and we can be able to sort our problems.
Right.
But for dialogue to happen, both parties have to be in agreement that this is a major problem. This is where I faulted and this is where I faulted. Both parties agree where they faulted.
But
If I can-
again,
Yes.
they've been saying, is Baba the leader of Gen Z? Because Baba is having conversation, the dialogue on behalf of Gen Z. Stephen, back to you.
Yes. Do you think the president, I'm digressing you back to the cabinet, do you think the president should engineer his think tank? Because we saw some of these cabinet secretaries being swapped, like Honorable Duale and Soipan, who were initially placed under the environment, that was Soipan, and Duale was for the defense. The swipings happened up to the last minute in parliament. Do you think we should have something neat? We shouldn't see such a thing in president?
Yes, I believe the president should have another think tank. Yeah, it should get the think tanks on his team, new think tanks on his team, because I believe doing last-minute switches and shuffles, would really lead to people not being able to trust the government itself. Because why are you swapping Duale from the defense and bring him to the ministry? I believe it's a ministry of...
Yes, it was barely a week.
Barely a
we could
week.
see it being
Yes,
done in a...
yes. I believe it's, for him, he might see it as a strategy.
Yes.
But to Kenyans out here and to the citizens, they will see it like, why are we having swappings happening the last minute? Is
Yes.
it, what is happening? They are trying to form a sense of what is happening, why are we having the swappings. But I believe he should reach out to his think tanks and be able to look at this swappings not happening in the last minute and let Kenyans have the full view of what is actually taking place, and having leaders who are really meant for those positions, qualified for those positions that are being nominated for.
Just before we go to the editorial tonight for the night, it was so, you say that the CS nominee Mbadi who was in the budget committee.
Yes.
Do you think some of these leaders, let's say in the health docket, we need someone who has that experience in health, the way we've seen in other previous regimes? Do you think it will work for all dockets in ministries?
I believe it will work for all dockets and ministries. Once you have someone who's been in such positions, who's qualified for such positions, and you've been able to serve at certain capacities in those positions, I believe that will serve. When you put them or replace them in such dockets, they'll be able to perform well, and they'll be able to know that these areas are affecting Kenyans, and this is where we need to do the budgeting, and this is what we need to sort out for Kenyans. They'll be able to do that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we go to the editorial tonight,
yes,
and of course we will also request you to give your parting shot.
Yes.
We talk about the Kenya we want in a nutshell as we come to a conclusion for you before we get now to the our parting shot.
Yes.
Yes.
My parting shot
The Kenya we want.
for the Kenya we want. I would love to see a Kenya that has good leaders, not just good leaders, but leaders who are accountable. I'd love to see a Kenya where policies are moving. I'd like to see a peaceful Kenya. I'd like to see a Kenya where we are proud to have leaders and a system that actually works and taps into us like as citizens.
Okay.
Without that, we won't have the Kenya we want. And already we are moving towards that step. With this new wave of how we are pushing for policies, I believe we are heading the right direction.
Of course.
Yes.
Great insights. Now, in our editorial tonight, press oppression has been the norm for the past 2 weeks. We strongly condemn attack on journalists merely doing their job. The fourth estate deserves respect just like any other profession. The democracy enjoyed today should be a stark reminder that we are here to stay and we matter. We ain't ready to sing the doomsday dirge and follow the pallbearers carrying the last of us.
Well, the fourth estate has been gagged to their freedom of expression, and speech is innately sound, for they are protected by the law. Let justice be persuaded accordingly, especially on the officer who shot the Nakuru scribe. Press is a freedom, and we have been here when seismic events unfolded in different regimes. And of course, that is our editorial tonight. This, of course, has been indeed a great conversation here as we got to look at the Kenya we want, a conversation of the new dawn of governance. We look at the cabinet secretaries, we look at different conversations, including the mandamanos, of what they really mean to our governance structure, the role of mandamanos in the governance. We talked about economic reforms, the involvement of youth in governance. We talk about public participation in governance. A lot of conversation was here. But of course, you understand that the insight is where we get to talk of issues that involve you and that matter intimately to you as a citizen of Kenya. Well, we have come to the end of this conversation. My name is Eugene Kwach, and thank you for joining on The Insight. See you next Friday.
Everywhere, GBS.